How's it going, guys? So it's the weekend and it's time to talk about quantum cybersecurity yet again. Today, I want to focus on SealSQ, which is a company that I'm personally invested in. And I've had a couple conversations with Fabio. I'm bringing Fabio back onto the show because he's a super investor in SealSQ. And an exciting announcement from Fabio. He has one for all of you. I'm going to let him give that announcement, but we're going to jump right in. So if you like content like this and you want other retail investors to see it, make sure you hit that like button. Fabio, welcome back. Good to have you.
Happy Saturday, man. How's it going?
Happy Saturday. It looks like you got some rain behind you. You're kind of in a futuristic setting, so I had to match the lights. So we have that continuity.
Sure. Well, I'm hanging out in the metaverse right now. I kind of wanted to elaborate myself in that type of context. So, thankfully, yes, I got saved from my space station. I'm no longer in space. My anxiety levels are down. We're good to go. But let's kick it off. So I actually have the pleasure of interviewing Mr. Carlos Moreira. Originally, the interview was supposed to be scheduled for this Wednesday, but he got postponed. And one of the reasons why it got postponed is because Carlos and Mark Vinovich are actually traveling in Gibraltar now.
One second, don't mean to interrupt you, but who is Carlos for those who don't know who Carlos is?
Yeah, sorry. Let me just elaborate really quick. So Carlos Moreira is our beloved CEO of SealSQ.
Very nice. Congratulations on that interview. You must.
Thanks, man.
And so that's coming up here within the week, or?
Yeah, so originally it was supposed to be planned for July 23rd. It's actually been postponed to July 30th.
Okay.
So to give viewers a little bit of context, I'm going to give you guys the Eastern Standard Time. It's going to be 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And for those of you guys that are on the Pacific Coast, just like Majid, that is going to be 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time.
That's awesome.
So it's going to be an early morning for me. It's going to be an afternoon for Carlos. We're actually even going to be having Bernard Vian, who is the hardware guy for SealSQ, also talking about the hardware stuff. So it's not only going to be Carlos, it's going to be Bernard as well.
So where do people tune into that?
Well, I'm actually going to be broadcasting that on YouTube. They can check it out on YouTube. It'll be on X. It'll also be on Twitch and on Kick. So whatever platform you prefer, it'll be live. And that's what I'm really excited about, is that Bernard and Carlos agreed to do a live interview. I've got some preempted questions. I've already gotten approval for them. We've got the Reddit community asking me to ask additional questions. We're going to be, just to give people context, so there's no kind of surprises, most of the questions I'm going to be asking are going to be on the operational side. I may ask a question or two about the financial stuff, but I don't want to get into it too deeply, because I do believe they want to focus on the financial stuff at the earnings call. And the reason I think they want to do that is, one, I don't want to get them in any legal trouble. And secondly, they don't want to mislead any investors. So gotcha. I think, that kind of goes without saying. I know people are genuinely curious about the financial stuff. It's just, I don't want to rock the boat in the wrong idea, being an investor.
That is all super exciting, and congratulations on landing that interview. I do have a question for you. And this one is the most basic fundamental question. But I know that a lot of people just struggle to understand the concept of like a quantum computer and quantum technology. So when you're talking about quantum cybersecurity, now you're in that Russian nesting doll where it's starting to get maybe beyond what people are comfortable thinking about. So if you were talking to, I don't know, let's say a group of like fifth graders, you were doing a presentation on SealSQ and why it matters, and you had to kind of explain it to them in 1 to 2 minutes, what would you say this company is and what they do?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, you're right, Majid. SealSQ is more futuristic and post-quantum looking. It usually means like after quantum, and then once quantum has been integrated. And what they do is they essentially provide mostly hardware and some software solutions to prevent a form against any kind of quantum attacks. Now, obviously, these attacks are simulated, but the hardware that they have has gone through rigorous testing. It's NIST certified. They've gone through a lot of different certifications, and even their QS701 chip, it got approved and it completed its validation, which I think is absolutely bullish for the company.
Wasn't that recent, by the way?
That is correct, yes. And basically what that does is that now allows them to integrate and heighten their ecosystem, because the QS701 chip is going into very heavy production in Q4 2025. So you can actually expect even higher revenue, I would estimate, between Q1 and Q2 of 2026.
So, okay, there's a lot to unpack there, but bottom line, quantum computers will potentially have the ability to decrypt RSA, and
Yes.
SealSQ is looking to get ahead of that by
Right.
creating hardware mainly solutions, or both hardware and software.
It's mostly the hardware
Okay.
stuff. The software stuff is kind of important as well. And actually, I wanted to kind of show the viewers this because I thought this would be really cool to talk about. One of their major projects here is Quantic Edges, and Quantix is essentially, it's the Spanish government's allocation project with SealSQ. If I just actually scroll to the top of the screen here, you can actually see that they have like a SealSQ, Odin's, WiseKey, T Protege, and SETT Venture. SETT being, the Spanish government. But you can see like Odin's and T Protege. I covered it in one of my other YouTube videos. And essentially, like, this partnership is going to be really awesome. Now, when we look at the proven sectors, like you can see, as I've talked about in videos in the past, you have automotive. So this is where their RISCV chips and their hardware and software are really important for automotive applications. So one of the things that we talked about before is that automotive, if a hacker can get into your Bluetooth and then eventually be able to get into your system, once they have access to that system, if you have something in your car that could be autonomous, right? Once they are able to break through that layer of security, they could actually overtake your car, and then who knows what could happen.
And the first thing
point.
that comes to mind is Tesla, right, with their self-driving.
Right. Well, you've got Tesla, you have Rivian, and I think there's probably a couple other players too. Waymo is another one that I think about. So it's scary stuff, but I think they're doing the right thing to be setting up the right type of technology in these things. You can also see as well, like, they have things like medical. So they're providing embedded digital identities and quantum resistant security so that they can comply with like different regulations. Because again, we've talked about this before on other interviews as well, Majid, is like having data that's very sensitive, that it could be like your health records, your data, your family's data. If that gets out into the public, or a hacker has access to it, that's scary, just on so many different levels. Because that, one, it invades privacy, and second, like, do you want your medical information exposed and out there on the dark web? I certainly wouldn't.
Yeah.
Another one here is the smart energy. Now, this is really cool. So CCEAL5+, that is a certification that basically means that the hardware and the software, specifically for smart energy, it says the secure chips, they have gone through extremely rigorous testing. So that level of testing is so important that it can actually comply with not only military standards in Europe. I'm not sure about the US yet, so I don't want to comment on that, but military standards in Europe, it actually meets and exceeds that. And in addition, it actually is really important to know that these chips are ready to go so that they can be integrated, so they can actually start collecting data and preventing any sort of like quantum attack on an ecosystem. So you want to have any cyber threats and energy infrastructures being completely negated, or at least very resistant. Now, as you can see as well, they do the RISCV chips with agriculture, and that actually is really good because there's data transmission, there's automation and processing, because we know that agriculture, like, it's going to be less manual labor, and one day it's going to be robotic, like fully integrated by robotics. There was a video that I've even seen in the past where I've seen a robot that's taking a sickle and is just cutting wheat. And think about it, it's like you have the manpower of a robot.
The robot power.
Yeah, the robot power, exactly. But you have like the robot power of that robot just doing the exact same job as a traditional worker could be. And it doesn't require water, it doesn't require food, it just requires autonomy. Obviously, granted, you want to make sure that the robot doesn't tip over, because if the robot tips over, basically the job's done. But it's really cool to see what they're doing with agriculture. Now, the smart home as well is also really important too, because you could actually have people spy on you with some of the smart home technology that you have in your homes. So
that's comforting.
it's a little bit, scary to think about, like, hey, like someone could be spying on me through like my smart meter, or like be able to get data about my home. Like, okay, where is this information? This is where I live. This is like the type of energy that I use. And then they can start messing with you. And then, let's say, for example, I don't know, the individual or the company that provides your hydro or your heating or anything of that nature. And all of a sudden you're getting billed up the Yahoo for whatever reason, and you're confused as to what happened. And then you're realizing that your systems got compromised by a hacker that just decided to have, a heyday, right? Just with your technology. And the last thing over here with context edges, which is really cool, is the military grade security for critical environments. I've talked about in the past with you, Majid, about the drones. So we see the rise of the drones in the States. Drones are going to be a very important part of, wartime kind of going forward. And it's also really important in aerospace because it keeps a lot of authentication, integrity, and confidentiality, because you don't want, really important intel getting out to your enemies or even people that you're not aligned with on the ally side. So I kind of wanted to share that really quick because I thought it would have been really important for the audience to know.
Awesome.
So
Yeah, it looks
that's
good,
context edges.
and there's a good visual to just see and start to connect what they're trying to do and what markets they're trying to enter.
Right. And you know what? Another thing too is like people always say to me, this is a funny DM that I always get. They always say, well, if SealSQ is just a chip, what's the total addressable market? I just proved it to you, right? And it even says proven relevance in key sectors. So there's 6. So if you think about it, the total addressable market is actually quite large as an ecosystem.
So I have so many questions. I do want to, okay. I want to make sure to ask you about this interview coming up with CEO, but I want to ask you about this recent certification. So speaking of their chips, they had the certification, right? For one of their chips. What does the certification mean? Who certified it? What's the significance? Why is it important?
Yeah, for sure. So it actually got certified by Surma Labs. I'm not exactly sure where they're located, but as you can see here, the QS701's successful validation was allowing the company to begin the formal criteria for the EL 5+ certification process, and it's with Surma Labs. So it's good to know that there's validation with the chip, because this basically means it's ready for production, and that to me screams bullish, because like this is the one piece of hardware that a lot of the investors were really interested on and focused on, is are they going to be able to deliver this? And if they do, how are they going to do it at scale? So this kind of aligns with their timeline, because now Q4, they're looking at production. They are looking to get the factory done at the end of Q3 or at the end of Q4. I'm not 100% sure about that timeline, and I would need to double check, but it's around that area. And then mass production is going to go really hard in 2026. So kind of aligning with what we talked about a little bit earlier. So really exciting stuff, really cool. And I think that one of the funniest things about this is that it's going to be NIST certified, and it's going to involve both Kyber and dilithium. So really, really excited to see how this kind of pans out.
Awesome. So one thing that maybe if someone has just found this video through YouTube, I do repeat it every time I interview you, but Fabio is a moderator over on the subreddit for SealSQ. So he's in the community, and not just in the community, but moderating the community, and all the conversations that happen in the community. So as far as a retail investor goes, you're about as informed as any retail investor can be on any single company. So with that being said, a lot of people are looking to you for, hey, Fabio, ask these questions when you talk to the CEO. And what type of questions? Let's talk about that interview and kind of your mindset going into it. And what type of questions are you thinking about personally? What type of things are you asking? And then I'll also invite the audience of the Quantum Bull here in the comments. If you have any questions, there's no guarantee that Fabio will have a chance to ask Carlos 100 questions, obviously. But if you have any ideas for questions you would like, leave them in the comments. But yeah, go ahead, Fabio.
So I wanted to kind of give Carlos a good segue and introduction into kind of introducing himself, because I think a lot of people are unfamiliar with what he does. I've watched a lot of Carlos content on YouTube, and people can just look up Carlos Moreira and look at like videos of himself like 10 or 11 years ago. He has quite the extensive background in cybersecurity. I think he got into the United Nations very young. I think he was either 23 or 24. So he has a very strong background in cybersecurity. The guy's seen everything. So I kind of wanted to talk about like what his role was with the United Nations as a cybersecurity professional, and then like how that segued into wanting to develop WiseKey and specifically SealSQ. And then, being able to do this, it's a very important project. So like, what keeps him motivated? Because I'm curious to kind of pick his brain. Like, why don't you just retire? You have, you spend all that time with the United Nations, you can just relax and you can have a good time. But you're putting out a lot of effort to be a worker. So what keeps you motivated? I thought that would be really interesting to ask him. And then one of the things I wanted to ask him too, to kind of elaborate on, is I've read both of his books. It's two versions of the transhuman code. And one of the things that he talks about is the threat of AI. And if it doesn't get integrated properly, and this is something that Elon Musk has also reflected as well, is that this could be detrimental to the human race, because Carlos is a humanitarian champion, and he wants to maintain humanity by using quantum and post-quantum security and AI and robotics. So I thought that would be pretty cool. Another one I wanted to ask him is, like, in his opinion, why is PQC important now and not a few years out, like a lot of people are speculating, right? And I think that would be a really good question. It would be a really good educational piece for him to kind of elaborate on that. And then I wanted to talk about, obviously, the chip, so the QS701 chip. And I also wanted him to elaborate on the QVault TPM. I think Bernard is going to be someone who is going to be able to answer this question better than Carlos, since Bernard is more interactive with the hardware. And then I was also going to talk to him about, like, how do we distinguish the difference between crystal dilithium and crystal kyber? And how do they, in their opinion, how are they able to prove that their hardware and software will be post-quantum ready, as they claim? I think that's a really important question to challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. Like those fundamental, just those 101 questions. Why is the work that you're doing, why does it matter? Why is it worthy of investment? And where is this going?
Yeah, well, and I think it kind of speaks to the level of due diligence that I think I owe our community, right? So I thought that would be a really important question to ask. Another one is, like, the WiseKey satellites. I love the idea that they're nano satellites and pico satellites, and they're LEOs. So they're LEO satellites, which basically translates to low Earth orbit. So that decreases latency and that increases connectivity. And satellites are not very expensive to send to space now. But why are they going to aid in PQC, like Internet of Things, automotive, smart meters, healthcare, banking, military, so on and so forth? And then I get into a lot of the harder questions, like, is it fair to say that eventually the satellites currently orbiting space will also occupy the US side soon? Because Carlos has even said himself that they only occupy 10% of space. So there's 90% of space that they can compete with. But then you also have to think about, like, okay, well, what are the other players in the space doing? So they've got ASTS that they have to worry about, the space mob. They also have to worry about Rocket Lab, because Rocket Lab also sends satellites to space as well. That's something I learned about recently. And then I wanted to ask him, like, in his opinion, like, what his outlook is for Q3 and Q4, and if there's any, like, challenges that they think that they're going to face, or what they think they need to overcome in order to, keep the timeline consistent and on track and on schedule. And I asked them, if you're not comfortable answering this question, that's fine. But they were great. They were like, yeah, like, we're good with all these questions. I want to know more about SealSQ USA, and if there's any potential contracts with the US government on the horizon. If he can answer this question, like you just said, I think this interview will knock everybody's socks off. I could even see Wall Street analysts looking at this and going, how did this random kid on the internet, I'm not a kid, but how did this random dude on the internet, a retail investor, how was he able to extract this information from Carlos? I think that would get the street excited personally.
Yeah, wow. You seem very, very prepared and excited. And I think the fact that Carlos agreed to do an interview, I think he probably understands how important retail is in the story for SealSQ at this point
Right.
in time, especially since it's one of the quantum stocks that really hasn't recovered from its peak in 52 weeks when we had the quantum euphoria, and I think it's still stuck under $4 a share. So
Yeah.
you did mention timelines, and I'd love to hear, and maybe you could pull up the chart on your screen and share it with us. But well, as far as like timelines, is this something where SealSQ is going to make people a lot of money? Is it something where, like, I want to talk about the risks versus reward, because I think that's an important thing to talk about for um, every investment. And of course you're heavily invested, so let's talk about kind of the bear case, like what has to go wrong with SealSQ, and that for you to potentially lose a large investment, and what are the things that could potentially go right. And maybe I know you're a huge bull on the company, so let's start with the bear case. What
Yeah.
would have to go wrong, and for the stock to maybe not perform very well, or the company not to fill a market?
Great questions. Okay, so let's start with the bear case. The bear case would be a rocket exploding on a launch, which would delay their ecosystem. Another thing on the bear case is that their revenue does not meet the expectations that their guidance has set out. A third one would be that, as much as I am a bull, there's always going to be the case of what if there could always be the chance, like what if they're just lying straight out and they're just being frauds, right? But I don't see that happening, because like why would they go through all that trouble sending satellites into space, putting in post-quantum cryptography, like just rug pull us, like,
well, and
why
when you
would
have
you
outside
go through all this?
organizations that are giving certifications,
Right.
then you're starting to talk about conspiracy, and it gets very
Well,
doesn't
you're spreading a lot of fear.
improbable would be the word I would use.
Right. And then you're just spreading the typical FUD, the fear, uncertainty, and doubt, right? And it's just, I don't know, it doesn't make sense to me for them to keep doing that. Another thing that could probably be the bear case is they just keep diluting shareholders, which would just be really weird, because it's like, why do you want to keep growing your cash position even more than what it is? Because they've got a very healthy cash position. They could literally, with their cash burn rate, Majid, they're good for the next 11 years.
Holy,
So
that's even better than I think Rigetti before their last offering.
that's right. Yes, it is. It's way better than Rigetti. And you know what's even funny? I'm just going to kind of go off topic a little bit. QBTS actually has a really nice cash position. Shout out to them. They really do. I'm excited for them. But yeah, like why would they go through all this trouble? Right. So it's like the bear case is rockets blow up, satellites malfunction. There's cases of fraud. There's legal lawsuits. And then just overall, the company's a bust. One thing I will mention as well that's really interesting, retail owns a majority of the shares. So institutional ownership is probably less than about 4%. So you can see
Wow.
there's a lot of potential for investors to move in.
And I just think immediately about Grab, and of course Grab is coming up because
Yeah.
Amit always talks about Grab, and Grab
Mhm.
is 80+% institutionally owned, and
Right.
Amit has a 15-page thesis and talks about Grab all the time, and has a huge investment in Grab. And
Yeah.
I even invest in Grab just because he's done the DD, and I feel like, okay, there's such institutional ownership here. So
Yeah.
should that scare people that there's such a low institutional ownership?
For sure. Well, here's the thing. The difference between Grab and SealSQ is SealSQ has 132 million shares outstanding. Grab has like something like 5 billion, that's a lot. And so, if they wanted to keep pushing the share size out for outstanding shares, like I think they've still got a little bit of wiggle room to do it. But as you can see with the last dilution, it really didn't affect us that much. Yeah, like the recent dilution, I thought realistically we were going to go way below $3, but we really didn't. And I'll show you guys like the daily and the weekly that I've kind of mapped out here. A little bit different than what Majid does, but I think it'll be good. So if we look, Majid, like this little demand zone that I drew down here, I was calling out on my channel like 327, 331 looks like it was going to be in play. And we got kind of close to it. Actually, there was a liquidity grab down here. And then look, we're starting to retrace up. So we've got that descending pattern over here. And we tried to break out. So I kind of see us kind of consolidating a little bit, or I see the next movement. We're going to start breaking some resistances.
Yeah, and it looks like right now it's below that dreaded 388, and I think you've been in SealSQ for a while, so you know that 388 is a beast. It comes into play so often for months and months, either as resistance or it can act as support. But
and we can see that obviously based on the price history that you've also outlined many times in your channel.
Yeah, very long period of time below 388. So we're back in the dungeon, at least temporarily, but there has been a pretty nice recovery. So you have some moving averages as well. Can you zoom in? It looks like you have moving averages. So it looks like
I like using EMAs because I think EMAs have a better representation of like how the stock's moving over a longer period of time. So I like playing with like the day trading averages, but I also like the long-term ones. So I like playing with the 10, the 20, the 50, the 100, and the 200.
So it looks like it's reclaimed some moving averages. So from we're about out of time, but I just want to get kind of timelines and predictions from you. Obviously, you don't have a crystal ball. I don't have a crystal ball either. But how does this play out? Like, is this something where it's a couple years and then it just slowly kind of trickles up and then something happens and then there's a lot of demand, or do you see this playing out more quickly, or is this a stock that just kind of trades under $5 for a long time until the demand is there?
Those are some great questions. So let me just kind of elaborate. I'm going to bring up my my chart again. This is how I kind of see it playing out. So, okay, 2024, it was more about proof of concept, right? 2025, it's about certification and getting everything approved and setting up the initiatives. And then late 2025 is going to be the hype, which is the QS701 chips coming out. You know, I've still got my bullish target where I think we're going to get some meme movement because everybody's going to get excited. Shorts are going to get squeezed, and there's just going to be a lot of momentum and upwards pressure. So I kind of see us going back into double digits. Like I've kind of put it here around like the $12 mark, which is above the previous resistance. And if we can't kind of continue the movement upwards, I see kind of a retracement back to 6, which would be like in the later part of October, because the stock market tends to be kind of finicky in Q3. And that's just historically true after July, after it's got a really, really nice run. But then once this happens, Majid, into the December rally, I really see us just going full throttle and just not stopping. And I think everybody is going to be excited to see that we're going to break above these previous resistances. We're going to reclaim these EMAs, and we're going to all-time highs.
All right, and of course, for anyone watching this, it is critical. You must do your due diligence when investing. All investments carry risks. Neither of us are financial advisors. We are just here for information and entertainment purposes. So Fabio, it was awesome having you on. I learned a lot as always. And I see people in my comments all the time. What do you think about SealSQ? What do you think about LAES? More LAES, more LAES, more LAES. On any video I post, it doesn't matter if I'm talking about the moon or something, LAES. Right. So I think there's going to be a good support in the comments. And if you guys are following LAES and you appreciate content like this, definitely leave a comment, show your support to Fabio. Fabio, where can people find you? Where do I send people so they can connect with you and also get connected with that live interview of the CEO?
Yeah. So again, X, YouTube, Fab AI, Quantum Edge. I cover as many things quantum related, and really passionate about post-quantum cryptography. And they can also check out, like I do a weekend show with a really cool guy in PQC called Ian Smith. He is a brilliant man, knows way more than I do. And he's actually really interested in blockchain, because I know that cryptos are getting to be a hot commodity now, specifically with like, the Genius Act being signed and tokenization being absolutely integrated into the US. So I think that, the hype around crypto, and this is one other thing I just wanted to kind of close off on, with the hype of crypto coming, it actually makes PQC even more interesting to look at, right? And so I like how those stars are aligning, and I'm really excited for the for the immediate future and for the far future.
Well, Fabio, I learned a lot. And thank you so much for coming on the show. Thanks for being a contributor here and helping inform the retail community, especially about this stock that has a lot going on and there's a potentially bright future ahead. So thanks so much, and we'll see you in the next one.
Thanks for having me again, and I look forward to being able to bring that interview to you guys. I feel honored and privileged to be able to be given that opportunity. So thanks again, Majid. As always, appreciate you and appreciate your time. So thank you very much.
All right, man. Hey guys, I hope you really enjoyed this. And one of the things I do as a creator is I don't run mid-roll ads on any of my videos. That way you can enjoy content without any interruption. If you would like to support the channel, the way you can support my website, thequantumbull.com, and the channel is I have a couple different membership tiers on the YouTube channel. And I have one starting at $4.99 a month, which has member-only videos and poll. I have the Golden Bull, which is by far the most popular option. We have a private Discord, and I go over my trade alerts, buys and sells, all that kind of good stuff. And if you're really, really serious, I also have a Diamond Bull level. Click over here on YouTube, you click subscribe, Quantum Bull, and you can choose from one of the 3 options that's the best choice for you. And just to show you real quick, the Discord is a lot of fun. We share charts and it's a growing community over there. So anyway, hope you really enjoyed this content and thank you for supporting the channel.